So we've been threatening it for a while. Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross. The three of us have finally read it. JD's owned it for months and hasn't read it. I read it in October, preparing to read it or preparing to do a book club in like November. It's been all over the place. This is very much a hero story, isn't it?
Wow, that was very well done.
But anyway, Fantastic Four Full Circle. We've actually all finally read it. So this is a book. I said Alex Ross wrote and drew this, but it's produced not just by Marvel Comics. It's produced by Abrams Comic Arts as well. And there's this logo in the top corner, if you notice, it says Marvel Arts. And at the back of the book, it says introducing Marvel Arts, an exciting new graphic novel collaboration between Marvel Comics and Abrams Comic Arts. So it's not technically a Marvel graphic novel or anything like that. It's this weird collaboration. So I watched a video that kind of went into the deep dive into what exactly this is and how this came together. And apparently this came together in the 90s. So Alex Ross in the 90s, hot off of Marvels, actually, not Kingdom Come. But, oops,
wow.
There goes Sue. Well, she's invisible.
She's
but,
comic accurate.
So hot off Kingdom Come. No, I just said not that. Hot off Marvels. There we go. Marvels. Alex Ross wanted to make a graphic novel where he just told the Fantastic Four story. He was going to pick up threads from the original Kirby and Lee run and just tell his own Fantastic Four story. But the issue is that Marvel didn't necessarily believe, and they still kind of don't, and I think this is an issue, believe in like the self-contained graphic novel. If you notice, DC's putting out graphic novels willy-nilly. They're always have like something new for people to read, but Marvel for whatever reason doesn't necessarily do that all the time. They've done them in the past. There are Marvel graphic novels like God Loves Man Kills or The Death of Captain Marvel. Those are two big ones. But like when you compare it, when you compare it to DC, where they have like, All-Star Superman and Watchmen and Year One, Dark Knight Returns, there's no comparison there. And I've always thought that was so weird.
Well, I mean, how could they possibly compete with DC? I mean, it's really tough to,
to have any corner in this market where we have so many great books.
Satire, of course.
Apparently what happened was Marvel just didn't believe in it. So like I said, he went to go do Kingdom Come, and then Marvel saw that and they went, oh, wait a second, we'll let you do it. And how about this? We'll have Stan Lee write it. So you write, Stan Lee draws.
Wow.
You write, Stan Lee draws.
No,
you draw.
That would be interesting.
You draw, Stan Lee writes. But Alex Ross, who it's a very apparent in this book, it loves Jack Kirby and is one of the people that believes that Jack Kirby was kind of like him and Stan Lee were enemies, and that Stan doesn't give Jack.
Kirby was right. He's on the side of
doesn't give Jack the proper credit. So he said no. He said, I'm not going to do this book with Stan Lee because Stan's just going to ruin all my pretty art with his shitty words, pretty much. And it took until now for this to actually come out. And I think this has only come out now because it has the name Alex Ross on it. Like, this is such, it's almost an anomaly that this book exists in the first place, I feel, It's bizarre. This is entirely all Alex Ross is doing. Like, I'm pretty sure he probably made this contract with Abrams Comic Arts or whatever. Marvel just let him do it. But this is all Alex Ross.
Yeah,
that's super interesting. I would have never known that. And I think that it's amazing to me that Marvel thinks like, ooh, maybe this like wouldn't do so well. This is a brilliant idea for a book. I mean, this is so lovely. I was smiling the entire time reading this. That's how much I really enjoyed this.
So but that's exactly it. I don't understand why Marvel doesn't really believe in the graphic novel. If you look at like, it's so much harder for people to get into Marvel comics, I think, than DC, because Marvel doesn't have like these definitive books you can read to get the character. Like the only one I can think of recently that Marvel has ever produced that's like, read this and you get the essence of the character is Life Story, Spider-Man Life Story, right?
Right, and the Life Story
and people do read that
concept.
Yeah, exactly. But it is bizarre to me that Marvel doesn't believe in these graphic novels because, like you said, this thing is awesome.
Like as simple as doing the origin in like the page, like in the dust jacket. That's amazing to me because it's literally a 2-page origin and you got it right there. You're like, boom, I got the Fantastic Four.
And if you've never read the Fantastic Four before, this is a fantastic, no pun intended, place to start. This is a good place to start.
Right.
Yes.
And if you have read the Fantastic Four, I mean, it's a love letter to the iconic Jack Kirby stuff, and easily one of the best issues from Jack Kirby and Stan Lee from their run. One of my favorite issues that I've read.
Is it recreating an issue?
Well, I think it's
picking up the threads
sequelizing run,
from an
right?
issue. Yeah, so it's basically a sequel. So Fantastic Four number 53, no, 51.
51
is This Man, This Monster. It's the iconic Ben Grimm cover where he's like out in the rain. He's pull it up here. He's out in the rain, right? This Man, This Monster, which is a great tagline. And then like it starts with, you know, Ben Grimm in the rain. Now, every issue up to this point has been Ben Grimm being like, "Oh, poor me, I gotta be stuck as the Thing. Fucking Reed, you know, he screwed my life over. I'm stuck as this big monster." So he's wandering around in the rain, right? Like some cops make a comment about him. So he wanders into like this diner, and there's a scientist in this diner who is interested. He's like a rival of Reed Richards. He's very jealous of Reed Richards. He thinks that Reed Richards is so smart and could do everything, but does nothing for the sake of humanity. So in that jealousy, he decides that what if I took the place of the Thing? Then I could go inside the Baxter Building, take out Reed Richards, and life will be better for everyone, right? Maybe not the best, you know, motivation, but whatever.
Yeah.
So he knocks out the Thing with like a drugged cup of coffee, and he uses a machine, and he like becomes the Thing, like he transforms, and all of a sudden now he looks like the Thing, and he starts acting like the Thing. So he walks into the Baxter Building, right? Reed and Sue are kind of like he's acting weird, but okay. And then the real Ben Grimm is back to being regular old Ben Grimm. So he comes to the Baxter Building. And he's like, "Hey, that's an imposter." You know,
like Peter Griffin. That's ridiculous.
He walked so Peter Griffin could run. I mean, that's the white and green.
Oh my god.
But basically, they like Reed is like, you're not Ben Grimm. This is the Thing. Get out of here. So he kicks out Ben Grimm, right? Like he tells the real, the fake Thing, like, "Oh, why don't you touch this metal? That'll prove you're you." Instead of like, you know, asking questions about, you know, only the Thing would know.
Yeah, we're best friends. You can't figure out who I actually am.
But if you could crush this metal, then I will for sure believe you. So anyway, so Ben Grimm leaves. He's like, screw this. I'll go hang out with Alicia. And then they decide Reed is going to go into the negative zone for like the first time, and he's on a tether, like a big rope, and Ben is the one who, if anything, like if there's anything goes wrong, you're going to pull me back in. So now this guy Ricardo Jones, right? He's like, "Oh, this is the perfect opportunity. I'll just leave him in the negative zone. He's gone forever." And comic accurate, yes, Johnny was at college during all this, so he missed all of this. Which he's like hanging out, like doing fire tricks in a diner, which takes like 4 pages. But anyway, Reed goes inside the negative zone, and it's beautiful art from Jack Kirby. I mean, you get like what you see a lot of in this book, where it's like the picture background it's
like a collage background over the pencil,
which Kirby does a lot when he does the negative zone stuff. It's really cool. So Reed said that he'll give like a pull on the rope when he needs to be pulled back in, and this Thing is like gonna ignore it. But all of a sudden he gets a change of heart, and he's like, I can't, like, he's looking around the room, and he's realizing that Reed Richards isn't going into the negative zone for his own ego. He's going in there for the betterment of humanity. He's trying to find something like to help the entire world. So he has a change of heart, and he's like, I need to save Reed. But the rope is already like snapped. So the only opportunity for him to save Reed is to go in there himself and kind of launch Reed back in. So yeah, I mean, it's cheesy 60s comic, but he jumps in there, and he, you know, sends Reed back into the, you know, regular world, and Reed is like dumbfounded by this, like, how could Ben sacrifice himself for me? And you know, they think that Ben is dead now, because Reed and Sue don't realize this is an imposter. They think it's just him. So, you know, at the end of the issue, that they're like so sad, so distraught, and then regular Ben shows back up, and he's back as the Thing because now the other one's disappeared. So it's a really cool issue. It's a really cool concept. It's very far ahead of its time, right? I mean, a villain to have a change of heart, that wasn't really happening back then. So it's so good. It's such a good issue. And like Tyler says, it basically leaves itself a sequel to be made of like what happened to this dude inside the negative zone, because he never gets brought up again.
That's the thing. I mean, this book is called Full Circle. We're taking the story full circle.
Right. That was the thing.
That is the thing. Yes.
Sorry.
So I mean, where do we start? We start with the story, or we start just by gawking at the art for a second?
I think you gotta gawk at the art. Anytime you read an Alex Ross book, you gotta gawk at the art a little bit.
So it's obviously Alex Ross pencils and whatnot, but the thing that makes this book very different is, I would say, the colors. Which are the colors by Alex Ross?
The colors, yes,
it says colors by Alex Ross with Josh Johnson. And I'm pretty sure they're digital colors, right? He's just
yeah.
But it's so like pop art, kind of fun,
the
vibrant,
is so good on
pulpy stuff. Yeah, it's
God.
like it's beautiful. One thing I'm very happy that this book, so the size of this book really kind of lends itself to just looking at these pages and gawking at them. They're so beautiful.
Just the
stuff like
sci-fi
that.
elements.
Yeah, like because I can't even imagine reading this like on my phone. You know what I mean?
No, this is one that you have to read physically.
Yeah, exactly. Just flipping through every page and seeing like the new coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life is just so great. Alex Ross, I mean, obviously he's a legend. He's been a legend forever. And I have gotten to points where I'm like, does he have to do every cover that Marvel puts out?
Yes, he does.
Like, I would really prefer. I honestly wish that Alex Ross could just do his own thing and just make his own comics. Just give him like, just let him do like any Marvel comic he wants, and just let him do it on the side.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mess with continuity. This, I mean, technically, I think does take place in some sort of continuity. I mean, obviously picking up the threads from that, but I think this is supposed to take place around like, if I had to guess, like the early 2000s
at the end, right?
Yeah, so... Valeria is a very modern thing for the Fantastic Four. Right. So I think that this is probably taking place around, I would say probably right before Civil War ish in the timeline.
Yeah,
that's where I would place
around Wade's run. I would believe it.
Making it canon doesn't change anything.
No, exactly, but it doesn't actually matter that it takes place in canon. It's just it's one of those things where it like, I think much like The Killing Joke, much like these seminal graphic novels, they exist if you want them to, or they don't if you don't want them to. You know?
Yeah.
Well, and I think what works great about this, like, and what I've always admired about Marvel is that everything, it matters. It all matters. It all exists, right? Like,
yeah.
So you can place this story so easily in Marvel's history. Be like, all right, yeah, I mean, it could be placed here, and it all connects back to shit that happened in the '60s. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think the thing we keep saying the thing, and I literally am looking at a picture of Ben Grimm right now. I like that this story, and I feel like all great Fantastic Four stories, maybe this isn't necessarily true, but a lot of really good ones focus on Ben Grimm. And I think about it a lot, and I think Ben Grimm, and this is maybe a hot take, but I think Ben Grimm was like the first good character in the history of comics, like the first actual character to exist. I think Ben Grimm, he was like, I think if you look at the Marvel universe, I think there's no more of a Marvel character, distinctly Marvel comic book character than Ben Grimm. He's like burdened by his powers. He's sad and depressed. He has a shit life. He's a Marvel comic book character, but he's always trying to do better, and he's pretty funny. That's a Marvel character right there, right?
Spider-Man.
I think
exactly. This was before Spider-Man. I mean,
it was, before
Spider-Man.
I'm just saying, like, you could label that description to so many
Marvel characters fall into that kind of thing. And I think the Fantastic Four, they've always had a special place in the Marvel universe because they're like the founding fathers. Without them, none of this exists. None of what we like today exists in the slightest. I would argue comic books probably wouldn't still exist at all without the Fantastic Four. And so I think books like this, not just like telling great stories, but reminding people that these characters exist and that they're important. Like the universe is kind of about them. Like the nexus point of that universe, where the Marvel universe really began, was the second that the Fantastic Four went into space for that first time. And I think that's so special. I think that's something so cool about the Marvel universe is that these characters exist and that they're just adventurers. And then we have this really cool book about them just going on another adventure. And it doesn't matter when it takes place. It doesn't matter what happened before, what happens after. It's just a fun Fantastic Four adventure. I think this is so cool. I just think it's great.
And those are the best Fantastic Four stories of them kind of just going on an adventure. Like some of my favorite Fantastic Four stories from the Wade run are like, they're just going out and having fun, like when they meet God, right? I mean, that's such a cool story. Like
going out and having fun.
No, but that is a fantastic start
issue.
As much, and all of a sudden they meet God. Like, oh, so cool.
Yeah, and it's
they're
Jack
literally
Kirby.
4 adventurers, right? That's the start of the first issue or the first arc of the Wade run is, we're not, above all, we're 4 adventurers. And,
we're not heroes. We're not superheroes. We're adventurers,
right,
scientists.
Hunter, you got to read the Wade run. I mean, that's just
yes, you do.
I know. Yeah.
This book is the essence of all of that.
I think that this book is actually like seriously like the essence of the Fantastic Four entirely is in this book. I think Reed Richards, I love seeing him first of all, not just in this art style. Obviously, I think he's pulling heavy inspiration from the way Kirby drew Reed. It literally looks exactly like Kirby's Reed Richards. And all of them by extension look like Kirby's versions of the characters. But I just love seeing him lead this team through this adventure. I love him being the scientist. I love Sue, like being the glue that holds the team together. I love Johnny being useful. He's like kind of a tool, that he can
but in a good way.
But in a good way, yes. He's a bit of he's almost like a Swiss Army knife. He's got an answer to every situation. And then Ben can just punch things really hard, and he says a funny thing.
But he's also like the heart. He's the heart of the team.
Yeah, but he's the heart of the team, and I just love that. Maybe I'm talking more about the Fantastic Four as like a general concept than this book specifically, but this book captures all of that so perfectly, and it really reminds me why I love these characters so much, and why I think these characters are so special.
Can we get into what this book is, story-wise?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea.
So Tyler and I are just like in love with the Fantastic Four. We're just gawking too much. Like, oh, this is the greatest.
Oh, hey, is that what you were talking about, JD?
Yeah, that's actually
Yeah.
And
in the Rain. Okay.
So pretty much, this book begins with Ben and Johnny giving each other shit. Johnny's he's always making fun of Ben for some reason. I really don't get why Ben is still his friend at points, but whatever.
And in the 60s, I mean, they gave it back and forth to each other. Like there was so much joking on each other.
But then there's an invasion at the house, and it turns out it looks exactly like the guy, Ricardo Jones, I guess, who pretended to be Ben in that original issue. And Ben says as much. He says, "This is that guy who masqueraded as me years ago." And so through this, yada yada yada, they go into the negative zone.
Right, negative zone shit comes out of his mouth, looks kind of like Venom.
Yeah,
Venom reference. And then they go into the negative zone.
They go into the negative zone with like such a cool splash page. This right here.
When they first get there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
So
I think that's my favorite page in the book.
Reed says, "Welcome to the crossroads of infinity." There's just something. I mean, there's something so pure in reading a comic book and just turning the page, seeing something really cool, and this character yelling, "Welcome to the crossroads of infinity." It's just, what I mean?
And if you wanted me to define explain the Fantastic Four in 2 pages right here, right? This will always be weird. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Welcome to the crossroads of infinity, right? Reed's all excited, and then Ben, lay off it, will you? Like, perfect personification of who they are.
We go through an adventure in the negative zone. We see Annihilus, who I love seeing Annihilus. I have a real soft spot for Annihilus. I think he's really cool. No, I think it's because you guys know the Superhero Squad TV show, that old he was terrible. Like he was like a garbage character because he was a joke in that show. But there's something I always find him very funny. I know he's not supposed to be funny, but every time I see him, I laugh now. But I really like him. And they've obviously done cool things with that character. But then we get deeper into the negative zone, and we meet these characters that can make your, there's a horror show, kind of. I mean, there's so much to explain.
I guess something they reference is when Johnny was there. So maybe it's a little bit later than mid-2000s, right? Because that's the Hickman run that he's in.
Oh, like his death?
Right. They reference Johnny doesn't want to spend as much time here. He's like, I don't want to spend any more time here.
My time. Maybe this just takes place post today.
I think it could. It's just that Valeria and Franklin are too young for it to take place.
They're kind of young. Maybe like during the Hickman. I don't know. It's somewhere in that area, in that ballpark. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. But anyway, so we continue along this adventure into the negative zone. Reed meets this old friend of his, old friend, air quotes, someone who says he's an old friend of Reed, who is trying to destroy the Fantastic Four, as people usually are when they used to be friends with Reed Richards.
Yeah, basically.
It's almost like hard to define what happens in this book because it's just like cool thing after cool thing after cool thing. Right. You kind of do have to just read it.
It's a fast read. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of do just have to read it, but they end up on an anti-Earth. I mean, I could just say all these cool sci-fi things that they show up at to. It maybe doesn't sound that interesting when we explain it like that, but it is really cool when you're just kind of sitting it down and sitting down and reading the book and seeing these pages and everything like that.
It's a modernization of an older sci-fi story for the Fantastic Four.
it's like a big Fantastic Four issue. It's just like one big issue of Fantastic Four.
That's just, it's not like even outside Fantastic Four, it's just one huge sci-fi comic book that can pretty much only be done in comics.
Yeah, something they can never do this in like a movie or a TV show. This is pure comic book art.
And it's funny because I was a little skeptical going into this. I'm like, oh, is Alex Ross really going to be able to do good dialogue? But there's so much like great Fantastic Four moments. Like, you know, Ben goes, "Oh, Reed, you got any more jackass college buddies I should keep an eye out for?"
Yeah.
And Reed goes, "Only you, handsome." Like, oh, it's so good.
They have good banter.
and Dr. Doom, but we don't mention him.
Yeah.
I think that's so. Yeah, I almost wonder, like, because Alex Ross obviously drew this and wrote this. He probably Marvel methoded it. I doubt he scripted it. Really.
Dialogue.
You know, I doubt he scripted it. I feel like he probably just drew it, and then, like we say, you know, Marvel method adds the dialogue afterwards. But him being the writer and the artist knew exactly what he wanted them to say.
Right.
But
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Counter-Earth stuff at the end is interesting. I think, like, because it's another classic kind of Fantastic Four thing where we just end up on this other planet with these other people and having to kind of explain, oh, we're good guys and we're just adventurers, you know. And how Reed Richards, it's always like, and you kind of mentioned this, you know, from Fantastic Four 51, but the fact that Reed Richards, he's always got a solution. You know, he's always got a solution to help someone. He's always, literally in this book, he will give you like the suit off of his skin, literally, to help. And I just think, like, you know, we get into this characterization of some of these characters now. People think that Reed is like an asshole or abusive or, you know, not there for his family. I don't really like when people write him like that. When people interpret him like that.
That is the worst possible take on Reed.
I think there's little bits of that in Reed Richards. I think that he does like kind of care about the science more than, I think that's like his thing. But you know, when people write him as like, you know, an absentee father pretty much because he's always doing science and he can't take Franklin to the fucking, you know, playground, I think that's dumb. But in this, it's like, you know, he's a superhero. He might not consider himself one, but he's got the heart of one. You know, he's a good person who's always willing to like give someone else something because he knows it'll better them. Because he's the smartest person on the planet. You know, he can always come up with a solution for something. And I think you see that at the ending of this book. Maybe not spoiling it, but you see how, you know, he can always come up with something to help someone else. And I really like that about Reed.
And these people like they charged the Fantastic Four at first, like they were ready to fight. Obviously, like to them, the Fantastic Four are alien invaders here, but Reed just has a solution, and it makes someone just burst into tears over it.
And you get another great Ben dialogue when he says, "Oh, geez, the lion from the Wizard of Oz is coming in for me because there's a big lion guy running at." Like, that's so good.
And then when they leave, he says, "Everyone, click your heels together and think of home."
Yeah, so like it's so good. Like that's spot on Ben Grimm.
Yeah, I think this is. I think if you haven't read the Fantastic Four at all, you could probably read this book. Like we said, the origin is literally in the hardcover, like the, what's it called,
the
sleeve
jacket.
Yeah, and so you kind of get it all there. I don't think there's probably a person that reads comic books that doesn't know the Fantastic Four's origin. But if you don't, you know, if you want to go into this completely like, you know, knowing nothing about these characters at all, I think this is a very good place to start. I think that what this really does for me, though, is I think of this on the large scale, and I wonder, like, why do you think that the Fantastic Four in general and like the public audience have like it has failed so terribly?
Movies.
Why? But why though?
I think it's just people that misunderstand the characters. I think like in the same way that Superman, like people don't get Superman, you know, like
but what makes Superman's had more like, what's it called, luck, at least with people.
Right, but I think that if people really understood Superman, I mean, it could be the mega hit that it should be. And same thing with the Fantastic Four. I mean, two of like the greatest properties in Marvel and DC that are often misunderstood. Like you said, the way people mischaracterize Reed is similar to how they mischaracterize Superman. You know what I mean? And I think there's people who look at the Fantastic Four and be like, "Oh, they're boring." Far from it, you know, like they're some of the coolest characters.
It's like it upsets me a little bit when I see like people that just don't regard them at all. You know what I mean? Right. It's not even that people don't like them, like specifically I don't like them. It's people don't really think about them. And it does upset me a little bit because I'm like, these are the Marvel characters. You know, Marvel would not exist at all if these characters didn't exist. And I think when we kind of reduce it to like, oh, you know, the Fantastic Four are over there and the Avengers are over here, it does get like, oh my God, this world becomes way too big to handle.
Too big, yeah.
Yeah, but when you think about the Fantastic Four and you think about the ideas that were coming out of those pages in the 60s, it's just like everything they did was brand new. From like the art to the plots to the characterization, all of it was entirely brand new. And I think that like I think about this MCU movie they're making, right? Because I think this is my most anticipated Marvel movie. I probably said that before, but like I can't wait for it. I'm really excited for it. But if they fuck that up, it's like that's it. You know what I mean? You can never try it again. Right. But I think if they don't, and I really don't think they will, because I think they know that they can't. Like specifically, they can't fuck this one up. And I think Kevin Feige has always said he's got like a real soft spot for the Fantastic Four. He wants to do them correctly. I think that this franchise and these characters will like, they will be mega stars. Like these characters have so much potential to just like take over the world. You know what I mean? Right. They're all of them are like individually relatable, individually interesting. They all like are cool as their own characters. And then just seeing them mesh and go on adventures is the fun of it, and it's so much fun. It's always fun.
I think the way that you made people love the Guardians of the Galaxy, like if people could love the Guardians of the Galaxy that much, to me there's no doubt that Fantastic Four will be a grand slam. You know, I mean,
it should be a layer.
Pure amazement.
Mm-hmm. You have so much history just to go off of, and the characters on their own, like ignoring all their stories, the characters on their own, like that sells themselves. Right there.
Yeah, Reed Richards, Ben Grimm, Johnny Storm, and Sue Storm. Like those, you just say those names, and I just get like, oh, that's cool.
Like the Beatles, honestly. Like I know they made. Well,
they literally are the Beatles.
They're the Beatles.
Yeah. They literally are, and I think that's another element of the Fantastic Four that I really like is that they are like celebrities. You know,
famous. Yeah,
they're Reed Richards is like the most famous person in the world, and he's beloved because again, he's a good dude. I just like that's another element. You guys remember you guys know Peyton Reed? He's the guy that did the Ant-Man movies, right?
Yeah.
He pitched a Fantastic Four movie like 20 years ago where he said he wanted to make it like that Beatles movie. What is that movie called? But it's basically just them being chased around by paparazzi while having to like go to concerts and stuff like that.
It's named after one of their songs, Hard Day's Night.
I think it is that. Yeah. But he said he wanted to do a Fantastic Four movie that's basically that.
Which would honestly be cool.
Yeah, and I think that if you I mean this has been a rumor forever, but if that movie, the new one they're making, taps into like the 60s kind of era, if they did it in the 60s or took place in the 60s, that could be like insane. Like that could be such a good movie.
I hope it's in the 60s, like the one coming out right now.
Yeah, I hope so too. I don't know how they could make that make sense. I mean, they have so much time travel shit they can do.
Yeah,
but
a rat stepped on a button, they popped out. I mean, there's something there.
Yeah, there's so much they can do. But I really hope that like, because these characters are like so embedded in that era, like, and I think it almost somehow makes them timeless. It's this weird contradiction of like these characters exist and were created entirely in the 60s and everything they are just breeds like the swinging 60s, but somehow that makes them timeless because they can live on and they evolve and they adapt. And I think that's one of the things that's so cool about not just the Fantastic Four, but I think a lot of Marvel characters in general is that they adapt and evolve over decades. Like every decade of Marvel will redefine their myths and say like this is what they are now. And there's something so pure about that, like in terms of art, where they can just like readapt their characters for the modern times and it never like feels wrong. That I just think the Fantastic Four are the heart of that, and they always do it right.
And they usually do it right. Never goes out of style. I mean, whether you're a fan of Lee Kirby, Byrne, Wade, Wieringo, or Hickman. Like there's so many different runs to choose from, and they're those characters that will never bore me. I could always read Fantastic Four and be like, "Damn, this is it."
Yeah, the worst thing a Fantastic Four book could be is boring. Like even badly written or poorly drawn, but boring that's like a crime.
Which again, I think goes kind of hand in hand with Superman. The worst thing a Superman book could be is boring, because there's so much to draw from. Be that great run.
This, I mean, again, this book is just beautiful. I remember, I think, and I don't remember when this was, but post Secret Wars, obviously the Fantastic Four were gone for a little bit. I think at some point this art leaked, or some concept art of Alex Ross leaked. And I remember thinking that everyone thought it was going to be like a relaunch. Oh, Alex Ross is going to relaunch the Fantastic Four. And that obviously didn't end up happening, but I mean, this is what it turned out to be. But I think that would have been really cool. I mean, the Fantastic Four's relaunch,
but
the Fantastic Four's relaunch post Secret Wars wasn't the best. It wasn't terrible.
Was that the Dan Slott?
It was the Dan Slott stuff, and Dan Slott loves the Fantastic Four. Like, I remember when he got the job, he said something like he had a notebook from when he was a kid of stories he wished he could write. And like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, he adores these characters, but I think they really did need like a big grand re-entrance into the universe. They kind of didn't get that. But if this had released right after Secret Wars, and they put this out or something along the lines, an Alex Ross drawn and written Fantastic Four book, and they're like, the Fantastic Four are back and here's what they're about. I mean, it would have blown people away. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I think Secret Wars, a lot of people consider like one of the best Fantastic Four stories, which it is, but it's more of a Reed and Doom. Like,
Ben, it's not very much, Ben's,
in it, but they're not major.
It's more Doctor Doom story than a Fantastic Four story.
Yeah, and Reed.
And the reason I do love that book so much is because it does kind of have this conclusion that comic books don't usually have, where they took 60 years of history and they said, how would that relationship boil over and finally end? I really appreciate that, because they don't do that in comics. Obviously, the Fantastic Four are always going to come back. But I think that they probably did need something bigger to kind of come back with. And this could have been something really cool if it had come out then. It still is obviously really cool. But I think that Marvel needs to make a bigger effort with the Fantastic Four. I think is my entire point here, is that like, it was ridiculous to me. Remember that era of Marvel where they said the Fantastic Four and the X-Men are out because we have the Inhumans. That was like, what were they thinking?
That was like 7 years ago too. That wasn't even that long ago.
No, literally.
And that was when they were kind of fighting to like buy Fox out, right? Like they were trying to get the rights and all that.
It
was more so the idea.
It was because Ike Perlmutter, who ran Marvel at the time, hated the fact that they didn't have the Fantastic Four and the X-Men for movies. So he looked at the Inhumans and he said, oh, these are pretty good replacements. And nobody wanted to do that, but he was the CEO of the company, right? But it's like, you could never do that. You can never replace these characters in any form. They've done like the new Fantastic Four, stuff like that. But those are gimmicks. That doesn't last. Spider-Man, Wolverine, Hulk, and Ghost Rider aren't the Fantastic Four. That would never last. The Fantastic Four are these four characters, and these four characters, by extension, are the Marvel Universe.
And by the way, Mark Waid essentially says this, and is that in the first issue or the first arc? I think it's the first issue, the one that's like the 12-cent issue.
Is it? It's the one where there's like a reporter with them, right?
Right, and they're talking about like the people tried to make us updated. They show like them with the red costumes, like it looks terrible, right? It's like, well, they're different.
Those red costumes are weird.
We're adventurers. This is what we do. People buy us.
Exactly. It's like the fact that they're so retro almost makes them timeless.
The fact that the four of them, they're always together, but on their own, they're good too. They interact with other characters. Spider-Man, Johnny Storm is great. Tony Stark and Reed Richards is great. The Hulk and the Thing is great.
Reed.
Like, you can just pair up all these four characters with different characters.
You didn't name one for Sue.
Yeah, what about Sue?
Who is Sue's counterpart here?
Well, a lot of times she's hanging out with She-Hulk.
Yeah, is she?
Well, they were on the team together.
Yeah, I guess
John Byrne era.
Yeah,
but I think, and I think this is actually the book, the intro part. This, like we mentioned, the sleeve origin is actually told from Sue's perspective, which I think is really cool. The book isn't entirely from Sue's perspective, but something about the intro being from Sue's perspective is really cool.
That's cool.
And I think they mentioned, you remember those rumors that came out like a week ago that said that they're just gearing up to cast the Fantastic Four for the MCU,
and they're starting with Sue,
and they're going to start on Sue. And I think at first I was like, why would you not just start with Reed, whatever? But starting with Sue, that kind of does set a precedent where you're like, we're establishing the tone and the feel of this team, everything, because everyone kind of revolves around Sue. You know what I mean? Like, Reed's the leader. He's married to Sue. Johnny's Sue's brother. Ben is Sue is Ben's brother-in-law. Everyone's related to each other in this team, but Sue has kind of always been like there as the glue holding everyone together. She's the mother to the kids that sometimes Reed isn't there for. Stuff like that. She's always there when like no one else is. And I think I think that's really cool. She's a great character.
Yeah, I agree.
It's great stuff. Fantastic Four is one of those books that one of those characters that is always worth getting into, in my opinion. And Tyler mentioned this on the I Recommend podcast, but the Mark Waid run, the Jonathan Hickman run, even the Classic Lee Kirby stuff. There's so much stuff there. Go read it.
There's so much really good stuff.
Like Hunter, I'm dying for you to read the Waid run because I think you would really love it. I think you.
I'll get to it.
I know I was when I read it.
Fantastic.
Wow. Say that again. Say that again.
You just end the podcast.
Well, that's our thoughts on Fantastic Four Full Circle. To end it off, though, what do you give it out of 10?
Out of 10?
I mean, honestly, to me, it's
4.
It's probably nice. To me, it's probably a 10, honestly, because it's everything that I want out of a Fantastic Four story with great art. So it's a 10 for me.
Yeah, there are no flaws.
And I don't give 10s out easy, but that's a 10.
10 is high.
I give it a 10 as well. 10 doesn't mean it's the greatest thing ever made.
Yeah, 10 means there are no flaws. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Venom doesn't appear in it, so it's not the greatest thing ever made.
There's Venom-esque characters.
Venom-esque, he walked so they could run. I mean,
but he ain't Eddie Brock.
What's your source, Eddie?
Well, this month we read Fantastic Four Full Circle. What is everyone's homework for next month? April 1st.
It's so it's one of two that I think we will probably have to agree on at some point, right? It's either Secret Invasion, which we will release April 1st, in preparation for the TV show, which has no release date at this point.
Probably April. I'm guessing. That's my
rumors say May it's going to release, but we again have no idea. Or we're going to read Avengers Kang War, which is we agreed on this, right? The Mark Waid, Mike Del Mundo one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes. So that's the first 6 issues of Mark Waid's 2016 Avengers run. It's post Civil War 2. So
which one we doing?
Well, I mean, we have to decide, right? We'll decide at some point. We'll see when Secret Invasion comes out. If Secret Invasion gets a release date at any point, we'll do Secret Invasion.
Right.
But if not, we got Kang in our back pocket.
We got Kang.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll post on our socials.
Both. They're both good books.
At A Hero Story on Instagram. We'll post there probably whenever Secret Invasion gets a release date. If it doesn't by mid-March, then it'll be Kang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Easy enough.
This is fun. I like this. This is enlightening.
This is fun.
I love book club.
We'll see you next month, or I guess on the podcast.
Yeah. Why?